There we are.
Hey, hello. Welcome everyone to the Harmony and Healing Show with Cindy and Julia. Cindy here.
And Jen today
Hello.
We have a special
from our
guest joining us,
Vineyard.
which we're
Yep.
so excited for. Yes, Jen is someone who we just have such great respect for and who we've trained with, and so you'll get to know her today. So we're really thrilled that you've joined us here on our YouTube channel.
Great to
And
be.
so, Jen, where are you joining us from?
So I'm coming in from Martha's Vineyard, an island off of the state of Massachusetts on the east coast of USA.
Oh,
Mm.
nice. And Julia, as many of you know, if you've been watching our show, lives in Hawaii. How is it
Yes.
there today?
You know, Hawaii. Rain, sun, rain, sun, rain, sun.
Oh, well, I'm in northern British Columbia in Canada, and oh my goodness, yesterday I was wearing my down vest when I went for a walk on July 1st. So I'm like, okay, we get to experience
And
almost all of it except for snow in any given day. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. But, we're really thrilled that you're here with us today. And we do have some traditions here. We begin with opening sacred space. So we call in the four directions, and Jen's going to join us at that practice today. And then we'll open our We Are Coaches, our sacred, our own individual sacred space. And Julia will lead us through a short drumming journey. So we just invite you to join along. If you know the directions and you want to join us in calling them in or just feel the energy as we call in the archetypes, um, please do so. So we'll begin with the south, calling in Great Serpent. Hmm. To the winds of the south, Sachamama, beautiful serpent, mother of the waters. Come into our sacred medicine space today. Wrap your coils of light and love around us. Help us to release, to shed those old skins, those old layers of beliefs and that are no longer serving us, those old ways of being or habits. Help us to be tender and nurturing and loving with our new skin, with our new ways of being, to stay connected belly to belly with Pachamama, our beautiful Mother Earth, be fused with her divine feminine wisdom. Teach us the beauty way to walk in beauty and touch everyone we meet with beauty. Ah, to the winds of the west, Portarango, mother, sister, brother, jaguar. Ah, you who come from the place of the setting sun, teach us your ways of fearlessness, to learn to live without fear, to learn to live with certainty, to be impeccable in our words and deeds and actions. Teach us to become those luminous warriors, the bridge between the worlds, no enemies in this lifetime or the next. Thank you for being with us. Father.
aho.
The winds and the keepers of the north, to the indirect light. Thank you to those who have kept the fire warm and the circle of love going, to those who have come before us. Thank you, hummingbird, for showing us potentiality and
Mm.
only from the sweet nectar. Thank you. Thank you for holding us in your medicine space. Thank you for showing us the spirit and the soul's potential. Aho.
Aho.
Oh,
To the rising sun, to the keepers of the winds of the east. Thank you, Apuchin. Thank you, Great Eagle, Condor. Thank you for holding us in your great wisdom. Thank you for showing us how to fly from the highest peak and soaring above all obstacles, and also to see all the way down to that fine tuned grain of sand. Thank you, Great Spirit. Thank you for spreading our own wingtips from end to end. Thank you for being with us and holding us in your medicine space. Aho.
Oh. Ah, wonderful, dear Mother, Pachamama, Mother Earth, who is our primordial mother. Thank you so much for all that you provide for us. We love you and we're sad sometimes seeing what is happening with your beautiful Terra, but we honor you for sustenance, for nurturing, for grounding, and even allowing our eyes to feast upon your beauty. We honor all your people, the stone people, the plant people, the two-legged, four-legged creepy crawlers, the ones that fly through the air, the ones that exist and burrow in the earth, the ones that exist in the waters. All our relations. Aho Pachamama. Inti Taita, Father Sky, Mama Kia, Grandmother Moon. Celestial luminous beings of light and power, great spirit, come, come, humpway into our space. Teach us, grant us your medicine that we can hear, that we can experience, that we can feel, that we can incorporate that medicine into our lives to comfort, to give us our needs, to have our needs met, to heal us, and to bring us into the light. We honor you today. Aho.
And we invite you in opening up the Viracocha Chakra 8, source of the sacred, inhaling the arms overhead. Imagine piercing this luminous golden ball of light. Bring that light all around you. Even connecting it beneath your feet. Pachamama. Feel yourself just held in this energy, this vibration of love.
Mm.
And then inhale, we're going to open it over our Ayu, our community here, whether you're watching us live or watching the replay. Know that you are also held in this beautiful light.
Take a couple of deep breaths to just incorporate, to inhale this beautiful light opened up over yourself. Even if you are driving or you weren't able to open it, we opened it. So take a couple of deep breaths, seeing that light infiltrating every one of your chakras, bringing in that illumination that we so need today, giving our sight the sight of light, feeding our souls with the mana. Honoring Pachamama, great mother, giver of so many things to us. So allow yourselves now, if you can, if you're not driving, to close your eyes and enter in to the mana, to the space of the medicine. Let's share some breath together. 4 square, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, hold that light. Exhale, and hold that empty. Inhale, hold that light, and release with your breath, and hold that empty. And inhale that luminous energy that has been opened up all around you into your chakra field, and hold it, and then release it, and then hold that empty. One more time. Inhale and hold it, And then allow your lungs to just release all the air that they need to release as you settle into a more comfortable but slower breathing pattern. I see ourselves lying on the earth. I see ourselves as light lying on the earth. I see that our chakras are little lights, little beams of light that beam upward from our bodies as we connect with our dear mother and we take in that beautiful grounding energy she has to offer to us today to help us keep our footing in the chaos and the craziness that surrounds us sometimes. Breathing in the mana from Pachamama, breathing it in, seeing it come into your body, seeing it give it grounding, foundational oneness, peace. Couple more breaths. Expanding that groundedness, giving you that steadiness, that confidence to walk through your day, knowing who you are, not falling either to the left or to the right, but holding your course in oneness and light. Coming back into the room, slowly but surely. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Thank you, Julia. I always love the journeys that you guide us on.
So, we're so excited to have Jen here today. Like Cindy said, we studied together in the original online energy medicine course. And since then, we've all kind of added to our field so many things. So I'm just going to, introduce you a little bit, Jen. How long have you been practicing shamanism and what drew you into it?
Well, if we start with kind of the etymology, which for me, I'm kind of a words person, the training that we met was, I started learning and studying with the Four Winds and that shamanic training about 4 years ago, just at the beginning of 2020. And what it did was really open up and connect to my memory, remembering. And there were many aspects of my childhood and my family upbringing where they didn't call they didn't call my grandmother a shaman, but she was an earth keeper. And so it's in different words. And I think that now looking back, it really has woven a very connected story, which wouldn't have really come together without going through the training and really uh, dedicating to the shamanic practices, because I think independent of what shamanic practice a tradition is from, I think we were lucky that we got to meet other shamans from other traditions. There's a rooting in Pachamama. There's a rooting in the Divine Mother. Maybe the animals are different, the archetypes representing different regions. So really bringing this into my practice and sharing it would be since about 2020.
Where did you come from? I know you came from the corporate world.
Yeah. Which is, very related, but no, it is. So for me anyway, it goes together. So in the corporate world, I worked in an area called Genesis Marketing. So it was bringing new products to the marketplace that may not have been there before. And then there are all different types of avenues you can specialize in. So I tended to work in the pharmaceutical research for new medicines. An avenue for new medicines, and then there was an avenue for children, which I had gotten into because when I got out of college, I loved reading books, and I got a job at a children's publishing firm. And that was just the timing of it, kind of the new age of serving children from the ground up, giving children a voice that may not have otherwise been there.
So
I love that.
I do love it. I love your work with children. Why don't you talk about what you're doing now with children, how that has kind of guided you into that? Your
Yes, the common thread was um, I've always had a walking practice. You know, being a kid from New York City, you know, you walk through Central Park, you breathe, you know, so I tended to work on projects with people who were open to a very high-end diet to be able to work longer out, you know, so there was that relativity. And then one day it was more interesting to me about what everybody was eating, how many breath practices we had gotten in the day, and I was really less interested in the actual marketing job itself. And so that's when it just started my focus started turning, and I wound up working for a design agency where the designer always wanted someone on staff who did some sort of yoga, mindfulness, or healing with children. She
Mm,
just felt that that would offer a grounding. So I wound up doing all of these trainings where it's hands-on, you work with children.
mm,
And as a child, I was a camp counselor. I loved it. And so working with children really started that way of just offering practices, not knowing what I was not really knowing what I was jumping into. But the thing about children that's beautiful is
mm.
that they're very, very resilient. And I think what the practices of shamanism did in terms of, let's say, where I came in from, the mind focus, what are you eating, uh, which we would call meditation, you know, movement. The shamanic practices really gave me a better language to understand what they were saying to me.
Mm.
Very interesting. So, you take your shamanic practice into your work with children. Could you just share a little bit about what that might look like or how that supports kids?
Yeah.
What types of things that you do with the children?
Yeah, so here's a for example. Um, Having worked for, you know, a children's network, oftentimes children are brought in as guest talent, and they have phenomenal talent. They are not just great singers, great, you know, you sit with them backstage and, you know, they're reading 7 books at the same time. Or and I, you know, or they're learning like 2 other language just to keep them so you start seeing the behind the scenes. And so when I first started offering meditation practices with children, they would ask me questions like, do you see this in the window? Now, whether I see it or not, I was there to support whatever it was that they would see. But what I learned in the shamanic practices is a lot of children develop the skill of understanding signals that are coming that may not be coming through in the first 5 senses. And I just started, just because of my background in marketing, I was like, isn't that so interesting that every day at around 12:05, you know, there's a host of, because that's how my brain, you know, I was always, you know, kind of keeping track that way of just understanding. And so I thought it was curious. And then as I learned about shamanic practices and having multiple planes of perception that are in alignment with all types of thinking. Even thinking that doesn't want to think that it's there, that still fits, it all fits in. And so the more I could understand what children were saying to me in a deeper way, the more the practices started coming in naturally. Um, and I've had private clients where the parents are feeling that their, let's say, medicinal therapies are not doing everything, and they're not looking for judgment, they're looking for a complementary. And then I've met people who they're like, my child is talking about things that no one seems to understand, but within this realm of conversation, it seems to make sense. And so what I love about the shamanic practices that we received rights in, and I'm really excited about the rights that you're going to be sharing, um, within the Munaki. It's a gift of sowing your own garden. And every gardener knows that sometimes what you planted didn't really come out the way you wanted, or you pull it out, but you always can tend your garden. And I think that some of those rights that were given to us that were intended for, let's say, people who did grow up in a more Western culture, that we can share this. And children, at least the children that I interact with, they are multidimensional, they are multisensory, they are what we called the luminous, the luminous beings. And so it's really been an honor to be the hollow bone, as though I can say, yes, I actually see what you're talking about. Um,
So in a typical day, a work day, do you do yoga classes and individual sessions and group sessions? What does that look like?
okay, so it all blends together. So interestingly for me, the type of yoga that I studied is shamanic yoga. It comes from the Tibetan line. And so they were considered more in the mountains and less in the libraries. Um,
Mm.
and so that type of yoga looks at the eight limbs as the body being a very specific category that needs to first be understood by the mind, by the breath, by the current thoughts. So I, I think what added in would be a child coming up to me in school, because we do have a secular support of yoga and mindfulness in the public school system, which allows, a sharing of, right, things that help your neurology. So
Mm.
if a child is, let's say, too young for a diagnosis, they're 5, and really there's a waiting of just like, what's kind of going on here? It's really interesting that a child, when they pick up a stone and they go to a tree, so a lot of what we do is just called the elementals practice. So we'll go outside, we'll put our hands on the earth, which is a yogic practice, and then the shamanic practice is really drawing in, just like, it's with the intention that the earth is nourishing me, and that is our mother.
Wow.
I love that. We've so lost connection with that way of being in our culture, in our society. So I love that you're doing this. And I'm noticing children that are coming in now, like I call them the bringers of the light. They're bringing in more luminous light, and they have such amazing gifts that they're bringing that we're just starting, I think, to realize and to recognize. So it's beautiful that you're working with bringing more and more of that out in the children and showing them that, well, they're showing us that to be able to be that person that's holding that sacred space for them and being that safe guide for them as they explore and bring their gifts to the world.
Yeah. And so it really is multiple modalities, at its best. And
Mhm.
then at its worst, we're living in very challenging times. And that's why we're all here. And that's why we do spiritual hygiene and cleansing,
Mm.
because we are in a time, as many times in history have been, where there's just a lot more pressure. There have been times, globally, so yeah, absolutely. And I think with the shamanic practices, and I'm kind of giggling, because what I do love about the approach of the divine feminine, which, just again, it's a terminology. The divine masculine, it's another form of energy that complementarily goes together. And there's just something really, really beautiful when maybe you can't put your finger on it. Maybe that masculine, of just that more, because there's very divine feminine that's just like, it is clear cut, yes or no. But I think the process for children in our next generation, and being in the crone years, and kind of, sort of like, this is it. This is it. This is where, to also be able to be there with children and give them safe containers, because we've all been in, let's say, work environments where sometimes it's just not appropriate to let everything out at work. And so
Very true.
that's where the shamanic practices are very, very different, from, let's say, yoga and school practices, if we want to use different words. Because yoga in school, you're trying to create a way of synthesizing readiness to learn, de-escalation of, the shamanic practice is really a window of saying that's not really appropriate to get into at work. Because a lot of kids, like, it's work. But is it appropriate to go outside and put your hands in the earth and let yourself breathe, and let Pachamama, or let Mother, or let the soil, or let the worms take what you don't need? That's our exhale. That's our exhale. Just breathe it out. That is where shamanic practices are an appropriate container. And let's say, I'm just going to call it categorically a work environment. Just like we need to go outside and breathe, so also do our practices whenever we can. So that's the difference for me on a daily basis. If a kid is really I mean, we all have children in our lives, but when you're seeing certain kids just going, I need this off of me
Mhm.
or out of me, they're using words, I'm going to say phonically. It actually means they need it off or out versus, yeah. And so that's where I think the shamanic practices have given us a little bit, because that's also considered free play and
Mm.
unstructured learning time.
So how has shamanism changed your life? And as a Western woman practicing shamanism, what do you feel you bring to the practice, or we all bring to the practice? And of course, Cindy and I emphasize the divine feminine in balance with the divine masculine as a conduit to address the chaos too, and just our own individual spirituality. But how has it changed your life, and how do you see yourself in the world right now practicing shamanism?
Um, for me, it really shifted living a life that was more divine masculine.
Mm.
I've always had a spiritual practice. I've always been curious. Um, my namesake was the only person in my family who spoke to horses, who spoke to trees. So it came somewhere. But I really have to date led a fairly divine masculine existence. And it just, the divine feminine really knocked on the door loudly in 2008. And when I mean loudly, like you cannot not hear what's going on or see what's shifting in your life. So having I feel like I've been reunited. Um so there's a healing in a reuniting which is different from learning something new and also having to be in a place of, let's say, fixed versus broken versus healed versus it created a wonderful integration of everything.
Mm.
And because of that, I see the world in a different way. And
Absolutely.
and then once you do see the world in a different way, then it comes down to the shamanic practices of, let's say I may have had 7 or 8 tools of inclination and discovery, which I will say are divine masculine is like 8 things. I feel with the divine feminine is that I now actually feel things in my body that are speaking to me, which is similar to hearing plants without hearing audio
Mm.
necessarily. So it's been an integration process. And in that, in my personal story, I have always had the same dream since I was 3 years old, and it always changed as I got older. And when going through the shamanic initiations of receiving the rites and taking care of the seeds and really, and just kind of just dedicating that time and action and it all, um, I the dream resolved. It just resolved. And my personal story doesn't matter, but imagine having a story that didn't, so it just resolved. And so the good, the bad with the ugly and the wonderful and the miraculous. Um and I think I think being led that way and living that way um has created a lot more time. And that was something that loops back to the Genesis marketing. We always had a famous special guest. And it just was interesting that some of these people really kind of developed, television shows and stuff. And it was always interesting how they talked about how you dance with time and
Mm.
what you are doing with time and how do you see time, whether you're an artist, a scientist, a spiritualist. And I think having the initiations and the rites and the support and the teachings where many traditions wanted to share, I think it's a miracle and a blessing. And that's my personal story. My people were refugees, like washed ashore,
Mhm.
right? And people were like, okay, we're going to change your name and you can live here. You're like, thank you. So I feel like that also in the shamanic path has, um, the more I evolve, the more it blossoms and it's always in the little everyday and then how it opens up and out.
It helps us make sense of that in our life. I find that just like where we came from, what we went through, even trauma that we have gone through, you end up healing to the point where you're grateful for that trauma because it brought you to where you are right now. And so, I'm hearing what you're saying. Shamanism just makes sense of everything in my life. It's like my whole life I've been searching for the truth, and I would find pieces of it here and there. And I had a healing practice, and I would always feel like there was something missing. And when I got into Andean shamanism, I felt like there it is. There are the tools that I've been looking for because there are so many tools, so many techniques, so much teaching, rites, Nusta Karpai and Munaiki rites. Amazing that initiate you, shift you from the inside, and then you're looking at life from a different lens entirely. That's what I found. And so Cindy and I, we really work with the divine feminine because it's in that energy. We don't ignore the divine masculine, but as you know, we're in a patriarchal society, and what's going to bring healing is more of the feminine, the nurturing, the loving, the yielding, not the pushing, competitive anger sort of that's happening. You see so much in the world today. So I'm hearing you say it just makes sense of your life. And I really hear that because it did with me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, there are a lot of different tools that for me, yeah, it felt incomplete. And I think because the Andean shamanism sort of filled in the little gaps that were, in the Tibetan yogic shamanism, for me, how I knew was that I did make an altar. That's how I knew that all of a sudden I was just like, hmm, I'm making an altar. And, cause I hand paint, and it was just like this had, and so the Andean traditions have definitely landed it. And I think a lot of it is because of this weaving,
Hmm.
that this weaving, because it's a literal weaving, it's a metaphysical weaving, it's it's an aspirational weaving. I did come from the business world where the 2% placebo effect is the strongest medicine on the planet. And that is the calling of the indirect, that potentiality. And
That was the opening that you still held for shamanism, that potentiality, that
yeah,
placebo effect. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And also, if you have your if you want to be cynical, would you rather your day be filled with resources that continuously build you up, or be filled with resources that may, zap you? Not to say that teachings, and sometimes we have our downtime, obviously, but there's just something about being part of a fabric, and an IU, a holding that
Love that. Yeah.
that
Uh,
word, you're being held. And just in our, in our journey together, there's a power animal that has been by my side since Julia shared her energy with my energy, and that planted and resounded. And I think and I don't think it's to say that other things are not doing that, but there's just something about this balance of the clinical black and white with the heart space, and with the moment of you are still breathing in and you are still breathing out for right now. Sometimes it gets to that, but then also, when we can dance in that miraculous time. um,
mm,
Yeah,
love.
let's hold that for a minute because I love that. And dance in that miraculous time, because that is one way of kind of not being in the mainstream of what's happening right now, but saying, okay, I'm choosing, yeah, it's happening. Pachacuti is happening, the outpouring of darkness, but the outpouring of light. And we can't deny the darkness. Even the Kero are saying it's happening. See it. But you kind of take a shift to the left and you do a dance in shamanism, in the ethereal, and you hold that space.
And that's kind of why I work with kids.
Yeah.
They can fragment their little selves where they can have 20 minutes of genuine bliss. Kind of like a puppy, kind of
Wow.
like a cat, they can just time out that entire neural system and be in bliss, kind of independent of what's going on around them.
What a
Um,
gift. That's a gift.
and
Truly,
so,
yeah. They're
you
great
know,
teachers for us, aren't they? Really,
Yeah.
so they really are. They're great.
a
And
lot to learn from them. Yeah.
something to be said for watching a child, be held in the divine mother and the divine father, outside of their own everyday lives, and watch a child connect with spirit and
Mhm.
do their own release.
What
And you're
what a
sitting
what
there,
a miraculous witness you get to be to seeing that.
but
See,
it
I don't work with kids, so I don't, I'm hearing what you're saying. What you get to witness, what you get to be part of. And I love what you shared of where they are. That brings awareness, because a lot of us don't work with kids and we're not in touch with where they are nowadays. So
I didn't
thank you.
Yeah, I previously didn't, but I was always curious about the people I worked with. What were those adults like as children? Because,
Well, that's a different
no, but
subject.
that but that's the thing. That's the thing. So now
Whole
it's
nother
like
conversation.
another conversation, but yeah, yeah, it's quite beautiful, and it also sets, at least for me too, you know, my eye on the bigger game as well as the game right in front where, um, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Jen, I just want to thank you for coming and being with us and sharing all of that. I mean, as you were talking in my mind, I was seeing it happen, and it was opening up new understanding and discovery for me of children. And I think that's probably been the way it is for everybody that's watching this. So I want to thank you for joining us today
Mhm.
and sharing.
Very much so. Yeah. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here, Jen. And maybe you'll join us again in the future. That would be wonderful because we've got so much to talk about.
Yes, I'd love that.
Yeah. All right. So we invite you to join us as we close the directions. Such a mama, beautiful serpent, keeper of the East. Thank you for being with us in our sacred medicine space today, for wrapping your coils of light and love around us. We thank you for being with us, and we honor and release you.
Oh,
To the winds of the west, or Tarongo, mother, sister, brother, Jaguar. Thank you for being with us, for guiding us into all of those sacred spaces within ourselves that we don't always look at, and for being such a master of the shadows, and for teaching us ease and grace as we navigate our journey. Thank you for being with us. We release you.
oh,
To the winds of the north, to the keepers of the indirect light. Thank you, brother, sister Siwa Kente. Thank you for holding the space, holding the fire, knowing that we have come before to our children's children. Thank you for this beautiful time together. releasing you to the winds of potentiality. Aho.
Oh,
And to the east. Thank you, Apuchin. Thank you, Eagle. Thank you, Condor. Thank you to the dawn of a new day. Thank you for showing us grace. Thank you for holding us close in your heart and spreading our heart and arms and our minds and our spirit and soul as strongly and as widely as you spread your wings, wingtip to wingtip. Aho, I release you and thank you for holding us.
oh. And Pachamama, great mother, thank you, thank you, thank you for always holding us in your breast, in your embrace, giving us that grounding, giving us that peace and that foundational oneness within ourselves. Thank you for being with us today, and we release you now. Aho. And Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, star nations, and celestial luminous beings of light and power, great spirit, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming into this space today and holding us in understanding and knowledge and wisdom of the elders. We thank you and we release you. Aho.
So we invite you to join us in closing Viracocha, first over our Ayu, our community. So reaching down, bringing up the edges of that luminous energy field and light, and just bringing it over each of us here, illuminating each of the chakras as we go. Reaching down once again, bringing this luminous light up and around yourself, bringing that light into each one of your energy centers. Mm. Mm. So, thanks again, Jen. It's just been just such a pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
So much fun. Yeah. We'll be back next week to continue sharing on the Nusta Karpai. And so we invite you to tune in again next Tuesday at the same time at 12 p.m. Pacific. And we invite you to like our channel, and so you can be just informed of when we're on. And Jen, is there, do you want to share your contact information? We could put it in the chat afterwards if you wanted to share, if anyone wanted to get a hold of you, would that be all right?
That'd be lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, people may have just questions about, what you do, if you, when you work with children, or reach out if they are, I don't know if you work online. They're- Awesome, awesome. So we will put that in the chat, and also it'll be in our Facebook group when we post the replay. And you're welcome to join. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group, the Divine Feminine Shaman. So you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us here on YouTube. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank
yes, thank you.
See you soon.
Many blessings. Okay. Have a great day.